where I have not been able to create a thing. And so all I've done all week is think about what I wanted to do, and I've decided to do a couple of Valentine's Day projects. I bought these hearts at the Dollar Tree. It's probably one of my thrifty hauls, probably November. And so these were at the Dollar Tree, and I knew I wanted to do something Valentine. This is also from the Dollar Tree. It's a 4x6 canvas board. Came in a pack of 4 of them, I think. No, 3. And then this is a 6x6 canvas board. Excuse the dog. That I don't even know where I got, but I had it, and I'm just gonna make a couple of little Valentine's plaque type things, and I thought I would pop on the camera and let y'all see what I'm doing. So I had some camera difficulties. My battery or something kept dying. It was really weird. So basically, I decoupaged one of the those little hearts I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm gonna do the same thing with the other. I did clip some of this out, y'all. This video ended up full length was like 2 hours long, so I have sped through it. I agonized over what I wanted to include and how I wanted to organize this, because I worked on these like as one was drying, worked on another, but I organized them by each project so that it would make a little more sense for y'all. So I'm just using some matte gel medium and a big paintbrush, and then just some different ephemera, book pages, pieces from old time cards, old receipts. I think this one's got a handwritten letter in it. And these 2 hearts, I'm going to refer to them as my pink one and my brown one. My brown one is actually my number 1, and that's this one. So I am cutting off the excess paper that went over the edges just with a pair of scissors, and then I'm going to take some sandpaper and sand off the excess. That's some just cheap sandpaper, and I'm sanding off the excess paper on the edges because it's kind of hard to get to those edges. And I did prep both of those hearts by sanding them on the faces and around the edges because they were a little prickly. So, and I did find some places that didn't get glued, so I glued them back down with my matte medium. And I am just trying to make sure I get all those edges. It doesn't have to be perfect because I can always just go back and do it again. So, I am now going to whitewash these, and I'm just using a little bit of Liquitex gesso that I add a little couple spritzes of water, and again a paintbrush, and I am spreading that over the whole heart. Now I did this to both of the hearts. This is again, this is my brown one. It's number 1, and yeah. So I'm just covering the heart with that whitewash of gesso, and making it, just kind of pushing some of that to the background. Now, once that was dry, I pulled out some Distress inks and Distress oxides, and I'm starting with Distress ink in, I think it's old paper, and I know I just whitewashed all of that, but I wanted to make those papers feel a little more cohesive and bring them together, so I'm using that old paper to add just another layer there. And then I kind of went through, I just had stacks of stuff. I wasn't sure what I was going to use, but I pulled out that, I believe that's Distress ink in walnut stain. Yes, it's one of my favorites. And I'm just inking the edges and using a wet paintbrush to kind of get that wet, and then using my finger to smear it some, just to age that, give that the edges of the heart a little more grungy, vintagey yumminess, which I love. This process itself is one of my favorite things. I love to watch colors kind of bleed out and meld, and that kind of thing. So that's what I'm doing here. And I think off camera I did maybe add a little bit more to it to kind of even, will make it less even. So when all that was dry, I got a couple of acrylic inks, one in black and one in gold. And I am going, and y'all get to see my oopsie here because I've got a fan brush, and there's my oopsie. Oh my goodness, yeah, that ink kind of went everywhere. I added a little water, and my fan brush was wet, and I am just using that splatter paint. But yeah, I got ink on the back of that heart, and I'm leaving it. It's the back. Nobody's really going to see that, so I'm not super concerned about it. So, and now I'm going to do the same thing with the gold. I put the gold down, I'm spritzing some water, using my wet fan brush, and just splatter painting right on there. Okay, this turned out so beautifully. You'll see in the pictures at the end. Yeah, you'll see all of this. So once that paint was dry, I have these letters. They're Scrabble letters, and it's from 2 different packs, so the letters are all different. Not all different, but they're different. So, and I'm going to spell out Be Mine. So, and I spend a lot of time just looking at this, trying to decide if I wanted it to be kind of scattered on there or not. And I end up lining it up pretty nicely. I kind of want it to look like a conversation heart. And so I did an okay job, I think, with that. Once that glue was all good and dry on there, I've got some just the same walnut stain distress ink, and I am wetting it and getting just a kind of a thin paintbrush, and I'm just going to put some shadow around that those Scrabble tiles to, I don't know, I'm sure they cast their own shadow. I had a hard enough time seeing around them in a couple places to see where the ink goes down, and I fiddle with this entirely too long. I'm really sorry about that. So for each of these, like I said, there are 4 of these. You probably saw that at the beginning. At the end, I'm going to show you a quick picture of how they turned out. And at the very end of this video, I'll give you a closer look at all of them. But I'm also going to post some pictures of them on my blog. So if you want to see them, you can just go to craftyhope.com and take a look. I'll try to remember to put a link down in the description box at the end. But here's me. I did put a little bit more of that distress ink down, trying to get it without the water in it, so it'd be a little more concentrated, so that I don't know, I really wanted that shadow to be there, and it's I don't know, yeah. So that was the plan there. I'm sorry, this is all, like I said, I got real particular with this, and I don't know why it took me so long to get that just right. So I got that. Here's your look at it. And isn't that gorgeous? I just love it. All right. So for my pink heart, I've got another distress ink that I'm going around the outside. This one I'm not going to wet. I'm just trying to get a touch of that pink on there. And that is Victorian Velvet, I think is the name of it. That I just went around the outside to add that touch to it. And then I'm going to take Distress Oxide in Worn Lipstick. And I'm going to rub that kind of on the face of it. And I don't really like how that didn't blend as much as the old paper did on the other one. So I've got a wet paintbrush, and I am just kind of moving that Distress Oxide around, and it ends up making the pink heart a lot more pink, which is fine. That's, I wanted it to have its own feel to it, and that worked out beautifully. So when that was dry, I did the same thing with the acrylic inks, the black and the gold, and the fan brush. And this time I didn't get it on the back. You see how far away I'm staying from that ink pile there? Yeah, did a lot better with this one. I need a bigger desk so I can do things like this at the same time. But like I said, I worked on these in stages, so I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with this one. Now for my kind of focal on this one, I cut out a cardboard heart. I did make a cardstock template to kind of just figure out what size I want it and trace that onto my piece of cardboard, which was just like a flap off of a box. And I made sure it was the corrugated because I knew I wanted to get some texture in there by peeling up that top layer of cardboard from it. I had a hard time getting like my fingers in there to get a handhold on it, but I finally got it to work. So, and I really like the texture that this adds to it. I don't know, and I'm going to show you in a second. The lines on this end up being diagonal instead of, like, I don't know, up and down or side to side. I didn't plan that at all, but it made me so happy. I did like a little happy dance because I thought it was super cool that it had that kind of cool texture to it. So here's my Deco Arts Media gesso and a palette knife, and I'm just going to scrape some of that gesso on there because I want that like craft paper of the cardboard to be on there to give some distinct change to it, but I don't want it to be stark brown. I wanted this to I don't know, just be a touch of something. So I'm adding the gesso just to kind of push it, make everything a little more cohesive. So, and I could have played with that and covered the whole thing in gesso, but I made myself stop
because I didn't want the whole thing to end up white. So I did stop and I let the gesso dry, and I came back with a super matte gel medium. So that's a little bit stronger. I thought that would be good with this cardboard to stick onto my wood thing, my wood heart. So, and I'm just going to stick that down. I centered it using, looking where the dip at the top of the heart and then the point at the bottom were, and centered it on there, and kind of figured out that there were edges that weren't really sticking, so I added a little more of the medium, and then I put it aside to dry. And when I came back, I knew I wanted something in the middle. I really thought that that cardboard heart was going to be like my focal, and that was going to be it. But it needed something. And since my other hearts or my other wall hangings here, they all have like words or something on them, I wanted this one to have it too. So I just took a piece of fabric. I don't even know what kind of fabric. It was a remnant from the craft store, and I put X's and O's on it so that I didn't have to, because I thought about like what kind of sentiment or something I wanted to be, and I just couldn't come up with anything that I don't know, that wasn't too overly sweet or specific. So I put those X's O's on there and then kind of trimmed it down to size. I didn't even trim it, I tore it because I wanted those frayed edges. They're so yummy. So, and I'm going to use that same super gel matte medium, I guess that's what it's called, and put that on the back and stuck it down. Now, before this is finished, I'm going to go ahead and grab my Stabilo and go around that cardboard heart with a wet paintbrush and just grunge it a smidge. Just, add in that shadow and that depth and the yummy. So, and that will be all of this one. So that is number 2 of the 4. We're halfway there, yo. Like I said, imagine this being, you're only an hour into it. So there it is. So pretty. So this one, I actually had to edit down a whole lot because it really took me a long time. And this is the 6x6 canvas board and just some Martha Stewart satin paint, and I don't even know what the red is, but it's just a really basic red. And I put maybe 2 coats on there and then grabbed some white buttons. I have an obsession with buttons. I love them, love them, love them. So for this, I decided I'm just going to make a heart on this red canvas board. So this is what takes forever, is laying out all of these buttons. So I started by laying them out, kind of making sure what shape I wanted and the positioning of it. And you see, I didn't do it intentionally, but I did leave a little extra room at the top than at the bottom because I knew I was going to make these into hangers, and I wanted to have a gap there for when I draw the holes in there. So. And I started with some of the bigger ones, and I'm filling in with smaller ones. And it doesn't really matter, but use what you have if you want to do something like this. But that's how I kind of worked with it. I tried to make a good mix of large and small ones. And then I'm just using E6000 and meticulously picking up each one and gluing it down. It took forever. So once they were all dry, I wanted to fill in the gaps. So I'm doing a second layer. Now this isn't, this is basically just going to cover the big gaping areas where you see the red through, and then soften some of the edges a little. So, and again, I'm not going to show you all of me gluing it out. This is it at the end. So that's just 2 layers of buttons, and you're getting to see me put down the last couple ones, picking out where I thought, like I said, the edges need to be softened, or and yeah, I think, yeah, right up there at the top, I didn't like that big dip there, so I grabbed a little tiny button and I put that there. So this is it when it's all completely dry, and it's kind of awesome. So I'm going to take that Stabilo again, and I am just going to add some depth and shadow to it. I'm going to go around the heart and then around the outside edges of the heart. I mean, of the, like, frame it with the Stabilo. And again, with my wet paintbrush, dragging that out and adding the yummy grunginess that I love so much. That may not be everybody's jam, but again, I told you I really love to like bleed colors out. I don't know what it is. There's something just magic about it that you can take a watercolor or a Stabilo or something, pencil, and make it flow, and that it's some kind of artsy magic, and I am all about that. And that's, it adds some happy for it to me. That brings me joy in the process, and that's really what making this art is about, is using the materials that make you happy and you want to play with. And so find what does that for you, because like I said, watercolors or color things that bleed, they're my jam. So here is it all finished, with the hanger and everything. And I'm going to show you here at the end how I add the hanger. So don't worry about all that. So this is number 4. And I decided I wanted to use some modeling paste. And all I could find was light modeling paste, because I thought about making some. But I thought, I've got this. Let me just go ahead and use it and see how it does. And I really, y'all, I thought that this was not going to come together. I thought, okay, I'm only going to end up with 3 pieces of art. Oh, and that's where we're having a bad storm. The lights flickered. Um, but this, I end up really kind of liking it in the end. It's a technique I kind of dug. So anyway, that stencil is from the Dollar Tree. It was one of the few heart stencils I had. So I was like, well, I'm going to work with it. So I just put the modeling paste through the stencil, and I'm trying to clean up some of the chunks and stuff. You see up at the top, I've got peaks, and so I'm just scraping those off. And then I'm going to take the back of my palette knife, and I'm just tapping into that modeling paste to give it a little more texture. And I let that dry, and once it was dry, I grabbed, I think the shade is Sea Breeze from Americana. I know Miss Tiffany of Southern Gals Designs use it a ton. Um, and I love it as well. So I hope y'all aren't getting bored of seeing this color, but I'm using a kind of small brush to kind of make sure I get into the cracks and crevices of all of this dry modeling paste. And while it takes me just a little bit longer because it is so small, it does help a lot to, I don't know, maybe get those fine details. So, and I kind of clean up there, but then I realized that I had a couple spots that I didn't get, so I'm going through that and then getting all the edges, because I know they'll end up showing in the end, so I want to make sure they've got all that pretty sea breeze on them. So from there, once it is dry, I'm coming in with a little bit of wet dry sandpaper, and I'm using it dry. And I'm just using that because it is a super fine grit, and I wanted just a fine grit to sand back some of the paint and the modeling paste and all that. I don't know. I thought I knew what I was going to do. Like I said, y'all, this one, I don't know. I thought at some point I was going to trash this one. So there's a lot of playing with this one. And I use that fluffy brush just to kind of get any of the loose bits that may have been in there out. So that is a Lindy Stamp Gang spray, and I think it's, oh, some kind of brown copper. I can't even remember. Um, and I am just spraying it straight on there, and then using a big brush to just kind of move all of that color all the way in, and that absolutely covers up any of it. Kind of just soaks into that modeling paste that was revealed there. So that's kind of something I didn't know would do. I'm playing, I don't know what's going to happen. So I let that dry for a little bit, and then I've got my stays on there. And y'all see, I keep trying to bend that. When I put all that stuff on there, it kind of bowed that little canvas board. It's not a huge deal, but I wanted everything to be flat. So anyway, I rubbed that stays on across the top of that just to kind of highlight things, and then I laid out my Scrabble letters there to see how it would work, and I realized I hated it. I was not happy with how any of that had worked. So I pull out my Deco Arts Media gesso, and I am scraping it over the top, and then taking I think that's just a paper towel. It could be a wet wipe, to kind of spread that gesso out. And I sprayed some more of that Lindy's spray on there, and I'm moving it around to try to pick up the texture and everything that is on that canvas board. So, yeah, you see me spraying and moving and trying to figure out, and that gesso is still wet, so that Lindy's is kind of soaking in there a little bit, and that's, it just looks like a muddy mess to me. And this is about where I'm like, maybe I'm just gonna give up. I may just give it all up. So before I got it all dry, I did try to pick it up a little bit and then spray some more. And then I grab my teal. I cannot remember the shade of this teal. It's like luscious teal or something like that. It is a beautiful teal. And y'all, this ended up being, I don't know, somehow the smartest thing I did, because when this gets dry, it looks like a patina with that copper. It's pretty flippin' amazing. So you'll see here in the pictures in the end how just I don't even know how that works, but it's awesome. So I've got my Scrabble letters here, and I'm looking at them again. I couldn't decide if I wanted to do them along the bottom or in the middle, and I was looking at it, and I decided to pull out this little bit of, it's a copper wax by, oh, who is it by? Art C, I think is who it's by. And I am just using my finger to kind of highlight the raised portions with this copper, and that really also helps with that patina look. It's kind of great. So I've got those Scrabble letters, and I've got my E6000 again, and I am just going to plop it onto the back of each of these Scrabble letters. And y'all, I love using that little tiny E6000 because if it dries up, it's just a little bitty tube and not like one of the whole big tubes. So that's my tip there. So once I got that glued and dry, I did take my black Stabilo and highlight the letters a little bit, and of course use my wet paintbrush to blend that all out and make some magic. So, and that doesn't, my grammar this morning, I'm sorry, that doesn't take me real long to go around these. It's not as fiddly as the other one with the Scrabble letters. So let me show you how I attach the wire to this. I'm using a Dremel with a little drill bit on it. My husband has told me to tell y'all this is not the most efficient or safest way to do this, so don't do as I'm doing, but this is how I did it. So I marked where I wanted my holes, and I'm just going to drill straight into there where those holes are marked and make sure, see me moving my hands away because Dremels have a tendency to jump and then you can drill your fingers. So that's why my husband wants me to tell you don't do it. So, but it's easiest for me because our drill press and all of that is way out across the yard, and I didn't want to go deal with that. So I have some, that's either 19 or 20 gauge black annealed steel wire from the hardware store, and I am just cutting down, I don't know, just, what is that, like a foot and a half, just over a foot, something like that. I like to have plenty of wire to work with. And I was trying to figure out how I wanted to put those on there. I should have kind of figured that out maybe before I drilled my holes, but it ended up working out really cute. I thought I wanted a longer loop, but I realized that looked kind of silly as close as I had drilled those holes together. So I resigned myself to where the holes were and making a shorter length of wire, and it's really kind of cute. So I just inserted that through the holes, pulled it up, and kind of wrapped the wire around itself. I did cover my hand over what I clipped off to keep it from flying away, but when I uncovered my hand, it flew away, and yeah, anyway, I don't know. So then I'm just repeating the same thing on the other side. I inserted it through the hole, and then I am just wrapping that end around to secure it, and then I'll trim off any of the excess, and that time I held the wire. And then I'm going to use just some chain nose pliers to kind of tuck that little pointy end there to make sure it doesn't poke anybody, because nobody wants to get poked with wire. I do it to myself all the time. It is no fun. So I always try to make sure those ends are secure. And then this little, oh, and I did open up those parts a little bit so it swings a little more freely. And that's it. And I just repeated that on all of these so that you can see them, how great they turned out. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. And thanks for watching, guys. Bye.